Hey everyone, Steven here, and today I'm reviewing the GX headset from Edifier. Like all of my headset reviews, I'll be using the built-in microphone for the entire video with no adjustments in post outside of making sure the gain levels are even. I'll cover the specs first before getting into what I like, potentially don't like, in the gray area before wrapping the video up. With that being said, let's cover the specs. The Edifier GX headset features 50mm drivers with a high-res audio certification and a 96 kHz at 24-bit high-resolution decoding transmission. For the frequency response, this is 20 Hz to 20 kHz. The built-in microphone information isn't quite labeled on the website listing, but from my interpretation, the microphone sensitivity is negative 38 decibels plus or minus 3 decibels. And then it actually shifts this back to the headset. So sensitivity, I'm assuming for the audio, is 97 decibels plus or minus 3 decibels. Frequency response, I've gotten a couple different things with various listings for this because they have multiple websites. Here it's saying 20 hertz to 40 kilohertz. I've also seen 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So it kind of ranges. And then the impedance here is going to be 32 ohms. This is on the heavier side for a wired headset, coming in at 345 grams. And this only has height and tilt adjustments for the ear cups, so you won't get any swivel adjustment here, making this feel overall more rigid. For connection options, this uses USB-C to C, USB-C to A, or an audio cable. All of those you get with this in the box itself, so you don't have to worry about trying to get those on top of the cost of the headset. So this is going to essentially work with anything that uses those connection options, which is really nice. So you are covered across the board. Some of these I wasn't actually expecting that it would necessarily connect, and it did, like my iPhone, for instance, and it still actually gave power to the lighting, which was awesome. You usually don't see that, but I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a little bit. For certain things, though, it's going to be kind of a preference based off the device in terms of what input it's going to take. An example of that is going to be the Xbox can use the audio input, like the audio jack input, but it can't use a USB input, while the PlayStation 5 can use that USB-C to A or USB-C to C input. From what I can tell, there's not going to be an app associated with this headset, so you're kind of missing some adjustments. Although for some of the other Edifier headsets, whether that's a regular headset or a gaming headset, you have the regular Edifier app or the Hectate app with those products. So here we don't have either app, again, from what I can tell, which I do find kind of odd. So they're somewhat expecting that you're going to use the adjustments that you're going to find within the operating system of a console or within Windows 11, or if you're using an app or anything like that, versus an application that they would have in order to do that. So you kind of have to do it in a roundabout way. Kind of feels like there is something missing here. I do find that a little bit weird with this one, considering the price tag, but also considering this is kind of a higher end headset within their overall kind of gaming headset lineup. But I'll get more into that here in a little bit. Shifting over now to the physical features. On the right hand side, you will find the music/game mode button and the RGB light button, which this has 4 colors and a rainbow cycle. You also have basically 3 modes. The rainbow cycle is one of those, but you have just a static color and then a breathing color. And then you can also turn this off if you just want it off. And for the lighting, it's going to be on the outside of the ear cushions and the molding. And then you also have a little splash on the microphone itself. Every item that I've paired this with, as long as I'm using the USB Type-C input, it actually gets power from my phone, the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, anything that is using that input. If you switch over to the audio jack, there's no power to it, so you won't actually get the lighting effect. That's going to affect if you're using this with an Xbox Series X. If you still wanted lighting for whatever reason with this though, you could actually plug it in with the USB type C to A input. You will get the lighting that way, but you're going to have to use that along with the audio cable in order to get audio. So in that instance, the USB C to A cable only gives lighting, and then the audio jack actually supplies the sound. It would be a pain because you have two cables, but there is a workaround if you wanted lighting with this on an Xbox Series X. For the music and game functions, it doesn't say which one you're in when you click on this. Usually, like, they kind of program a voice, will say game mode or music mode or something like that. This doesn't do that. So it's hard to tell which one I'm in. The subtlety that I can pick up is one has a little bit more bass, and then the other one potentially either just less bass or maybe a little bit more treble. My assumption is the music probably has more bass to it in terms of like the music mode, and then the game mode here probably has more treble. On the left hand side, you will find the USB-C input, the audio jack, the retractable microphone, volume scroll wheel, and then the microphone on or off button. Now with the microphone, they do say that this is a dual microphone, and then it has kind of built-in ENC, so noise cancellation with this to filter out any ambient noise. My PC is pretty loud with the fans, so from what I've noticed just on listening back to this, it does help with that. But I'm noticing a kind of hiss that it just has by default, but it's only doing it when I'm recording in Premiere Pro. It's not something I've heard anybody mention when I'm gaming that they're hearing from my microphone. So I messed with some settings, tried to filter it out, couldn't figure out what's actually causing it. And until now, I've just left it in, but starting now, I actually want to filter that out using adaptive noise reduction in Premiere Pro. I don't think people are going to record content with this, so that's most likely an issue you're not going to have, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what is causing it. I've not had this issue again. If I'm actually gaming and I'm using chat, nobody's saying that they're hearing a hiss or anything like that. So, not an issue that I think people are going to actually run into. I just can't figure out what is actually causing it when I'm recording content in Premiere Pro. The headset features a pleather material on the ear cushions with memory foam instead of the basic foam that you find with most ear cushions on headsets. This actually is quite comfortable, and I wish every headset would just have memory foam. It just is more comfortable than regular foam. In this instance, it will actually help offset the tighter fit that these have, so it was a good choice on Edifier's end to actually include the memory foam here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, for the headset, it only has the height and tilt adjustments for the ear cups. This does have a decent amount of flex to the headband, which just has regular foam and the pleather material to cover it. The height here overall isn't the largest that I've seen. Kind of feels like the standard amount that I find with most headsets, which for most people is going to be plenty. One of the things that I will note is that this headset is mostly made of plastic. So when you do actually go to flex this, it has a decent amount, but overall it feels more rigid as a headset. So it kind of feels like you're going to break something as you're stretching it out. I'm usually not stretching out headsets with the headband that far, but just something to be mindful of. So now that I've covered the specs and features, let's shift over now to what I like about the headset. I usually run these in separate kind of sections. I'm still going to try to follow that, but here I've noticed certain things. It may be something I really like, but it has a potential downside, so I will mention those together instead of just completely keeping it separate. So I'll do my best to kind of work through this and keep those sections, but there's going to be some overlap here. I'm going to start with the sound quality. That's the thing that matters most with a headset. And overall, this has been really good in terms of the sound quality across the board, regardless of what I'm using this with. It has a good baseline richness to it. You do have the two different modes. Again, one seems to kind of have a little bit more bass, where another one, it's either reducing the bass or you get a little bit more treble. It's minimal in regards to that, but Again, overall, as just a plug in and start using type of headset, the sound quality here is good. With this though, no software, so there's no adjustments that you can make that Edifier is offering. That being said, if you're using this with certain devices, you can adjust the audio through various apps and software that is out there. So, for example, if you're on a Windows based device, and that includes the Xbox Series X, you can use Windows Sonic for headphones. You can use the Dolby Atmos. If you're on a PlayStation 5, they have their 3D audio that you can actually adjust. You can actually run through, it's like their 3D audio spatial stuff where you can figure out and configure this so it's more specific to the headset that you're using it on. Kind of like what you find with the Apple AirPod Pros, right? You have to actually set that up. You can do the same thing for the PlayStation 5, but by default, it sounds really good for the 3D audio. If we're looking at other devices like your phone, I'm sure there's some apps out there. I just don't typically plug in a headset via the USB-C port for my phone. I'm just using wireless earbuds. The Nintendo Switch, a little bit more limited. You do have just the stereo sound there. But my point being, they are kind of leaning on the fact that there is software out there that you can use, so they're not actually going to provide that. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to DACs, which are digital audio controllers, but I'm assuming that there are some out there that do have a USB-C or USB-A port that you can actually plug a headset into and still use the DAC to control the audio. So that may be an option as well if you just want more control over the quality of the audio that you're getting out of this headset. That's more specific if you want the RGB lighting. If you don't care about the RGB lighting, then you can use this with the DAC just through the audio cable. Next, these get really loud with no to minimal distortion, and they get really loud across the board with every single device that I've used. It's right there at the thresholds of almost being too loud. Like, it gets you right to this ceiling, and I do really appreciate that because I've had some headsets where you use them with a device, and as you move from one device to another, like, it's loud on one and not on another. That is always frustrating. Here, really loud across the board, so you just have a good amount of range when it comes to how loud these will get, so you don't have to worry about that being an issue as you use this across multiple devices. And with that being said, the fact that this connects with everything that you would want to use this with, again, as long as it has the USB-C, USB-A, or audio jack, you are covered. So I've used this with multiple devices, and I am going to showcase various footage of this paired with different devices throughout the video, but that's a big win. Sometimes it's they work with one thing but they won't work with another. I think that is the upside of any headset that is plugged in. Usually the issue with a wireless headset is compatibility. When you're dealing with a wired headset, you really don't have that issue. But with this one, because most phones have switched over to USB-C, the fact that I can use that now with the phone versus like using a USB-C to audio jack converter or anything like that, like, you just don't have to mess with multiple things in order to get it to work now with the phone, which I do appreciate. Next, the microphone here is good in terms of the quality that you can get out of it for chat. Not sure what's causing the issue, like I mentioned earlier in Premiere Pro, where it has that like hiss to it, but I don't think this is a headset that you're going to make content with. Usually you have an external microphone that you're using for that with some type of audio interface. You're just going to want more control when it comes to that. Here though, using it for chat, streaming, you could use this with Zoom meetings or anything like that. Like, you're going to be fine with that. It has a good amount of richness to it as well, where it doesn't sound extremely tinny. There's a little bit there, but I've used some where it literally sounds like you're almost talking through a tin can, so it just has that sound to it that I don't really like to hear when it comes to the microphones. Here, very minimal, if they're at all across the board. I hear it every now and then, but again, quality here is really good. Next, I would say, to me, this is a negative. The headset is really tight, and the fact that it lacks the swivel doesn't help. What I can do is raise the height up a little bit, and it does offset that tightness just a little bit. But this is where I'm like, hey, it can be paired with something else, even though to me that's a negative. The memory foam that they put in this actually offsets that a good amount. So it's not as tight as it potentially could be. So if this was regular foam, it would probably drive me crazy. But the fact that they have the memory foam with this helps a lot. I still, at about the hour mark, start to get to the point where I'm not getting a headache, but it's like I can feel that that pressure on my head has been building. That's not going to be something that applies to everybody, but if you don't like tighter headsets, this is something I would want you to be mindful of before you actually got this headset. But also keeping in mind the fact that the memory foam here does offset that quite a bit. And another thing that it'll do is actually seal the area around your ear very well. So essentially, any outside background noise, it kind of filters that out because it does seal the ear so well. So it kind of has, it feels like it has like noise cancellation built into the headset, not for the microphone because it does have that, but for the speakers themselves. And I think that's one of the reasons why the audio quality here is really good because you're not getting ambient noise that's disrupting that audio. But it's also one of the reasons why this will get really loud essentially is because it's not going to leak that sound out. It just keeps it right around your ear. And that's going to roll us into something I would consider to be a gray area thing, but the aesthetics with this headset seem pretty outdated. It just looks older to me. Pair with that the fact that it is more rigid and it does lack that swivel. It just overall as a design doesn't quite fit where the industry has gone. So again, to me, it seems somewhat outdated. There are certain aspects of this that I do like. I do like the RGB lighting on the outside. I think that looks sharp. You are limited with the amount of control that you do have with that. I like the fact that the controls are built in. So this goes back to the software. I'm not reliant upon software in order to actually use the RGB lighting. And the fact that it turns on when you connect it to like your iPhone, or I mean, if you were to do this with a tablet or anything like that, as long as it's plugged in with that USB Type C cable, it's actually going to give that RGB light some power, which is pretty cool. I do like the lighting on the microphone. I like the fact that it retracts and it can get out of the way. It has a good amount of adjustments to it. It's just not great that it's paired with, again, a more rigid headset and aesthetics that just look more outdated. Now, they do have other color options. I have the gray one here, but they do have a black version, they have a pink one, and then they have a red one. So you do have options in regards to the color, but that isn't going to necessarily fix the overall design and aesthetics with this. Again, to me, it's just going to look more outdated. And that is going to bring us now to the final thing that I want to cover, which is the price. Didn't want to talk about it at the beginning, saved it for the end here. This is essentially $150. It's $149.99 USD. I think this is overpriced for what you're getting with it because you're paying $150 for a wired headset. Now, it has a lot of upside. Again, the good sound quality, solid microphone, the connection options. I just don't think this is worth that higher price tag because if you're looking at the landscape of headsets, there are a lot of options from $100 to $150 that you can choose from. So, with there being more options, you have to be more competitive with the product that you're bringing to the market. This holds its own okay, but I just think you're going to find a lot of other options that are going to best this with the adjustments that it has, the aesthetics, potentially audio because it may offer software. But I think with that, you start to get into the realm of what are the things that are most important to you. You're going to choose the best option that checks the most boxes for the things that you are looking for. This may have them, but I think price is obviously going to be a factor with that. I do not like to tell people what to do with their money, but to me, this is overpriced. Realistically, I think this is more $80 to $100. And I'm not seeing any discount coupons or codes or anything like that on Amazon or just online in general. If I find any, I will put them in the description of this video. But I would say if you're looking at this, wait for a discount. $150, pretty pricey. Again, you just have more options at that price point to consider versus just going with this one. With all that being said, there are a lot of things that I like about this headset. It just boils down to what is going to be the best fit for your needs specifically. And if certain things appeal to you that this headset has, I would say go for it. If you're looking for certain things that this doesn't have, or you want to look at other options that are out there, I would definitely look at everything first before I made my final decision, because you may find something that honestly is just going to best this headset. So that is going to wrap this video up. If you have any questions about this headset, let me know in the comment section. I will make sure to answer that for you there. I will have a link for this in the description if you want to pick it up. If there's any discounts, like I mentioned, I will try to put those in the description as well if I can find them. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button for me as it helps the channel out. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.